Welcome back to a special YouTube edition here at That Talk Podcast, the podcast in which we talk about business and self-growth in a community in which you can belong. We're your hosts. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Jose. And make sure to check our website out at www.thattalkpod.com and follow us on Instagram for any updates at thattalkpod.
Yeah, so today we're not in our usual setup, and we're here with two very special guests, Aaron and Bryan, who own the YouTube channel TwinRodders, in which they have accumulated over millions of views on their channel. And the thing that their channel is about is car shows and classic cars, and kind of going through the whole motion of recording them when they come into the entrance, and just taking good shots of them. And they from that they've been able to grow their YouTube channel and, like I said, accumulate over millions of views and become very successful at it. And recently we've had the privilege of attending one of their recent car shows, in which we had the honor of seeing how they work their magic and doing all their creative stuff. And just based on the experience, it was a really good experience. What did you have to say about that, Jose?
Yeah, well, I mean, for two guys that don't really do car stuff, it was kind of interesting to see all those things. A lot of times nowadays, the way people think of car shows is more newer cars. So we actually got to see it was kind of like a blast from the past type of thing to kind of see cars from back then and kind of admire all their beauty. And I really took a new respect for you guys' hobby. I really did kind of enjoy what you guys did. But I guess the question is why that particular car show? Why did you guys take us to that particular car show?
Well, the car show was the Valley Cruise Night at the Foster's Freeze in Burbank, and that's one of the few car shows that's happening right now because of the pandemic. A lot of car shows have been canceled this year and the previous year, and they recently brought back Valley Cruise Night, and so I've been wanting to check that out for a few years, and was finally glad to have gone there. And the types of cars that I've seen show up in the past were a lot of original American cars and traditional hot rods, which is the cars that I like. And
no foreigns.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a lot of car shows, mix a lot of stuff, but this was mostly original American cars and traditional hot rods. So I really enjoyed
that's
it.
cool. It was literally those. They really the cars I used to play with in the Hot Wheels ones. I was oh, that's really cool. They're actually in life in person. And like you said, when we were talking about it was just a new experience for us because we didn't really know anything about car shows or anything like that. Let alone nowadays especially classic car shows, because I feel if we do know about car shows, they're just a bunch of guys doing donuts or something.
Burnouts.
Burnouts or just racing, the new modern cars, whatever.
Yeah.
It's fast as all these modded out cars, but these cars are a lot different. More actually showing what the whole car is about. They had a lot of character, a lot of history. So I think that's just something really cool.
Yeah,
to see.
I mean, just like what Jose said, blast from the past. If you think of old LA history, the 60s and whatnot, a lot of people would go to somewhere like Foster's Freeze, like an ice cream joint, burger joint, hang out in the parking lot, and those were young teens, and so we thought us being young, adults, that would be a cool first show to take you guys to, kind of throw it back in the day and take you guys somewhere cool with good food and not
Good vibes.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because now that you kind of mentioned that too, it goes beyond just a whole classic car hobby. It's also a whole aesthetic behind it, kind of admiring all the rustic things that kind of are, and kind of just because back then what was really popular was kind of just living in the moment. And I noticed that everybody there that was there participating just kind of lived in the moment. They weren't really trying to do anything. They were chatting with all their friends, admiring all the cars and everything. So it was a really cool experience to kind of see all that stuff, because it's kind of rare to see all those things nowadays.
Yeah. So a new experience, and I had a good time, and I'm glad to hear that you guys both had a really good time. So I guess we'll start with Johnny. Favorite car? What would you say your favorite car was?
So my favorite car was it was the 1930 Ford, right?
Oh, the Model A Roadster.
The Model A Roadster. That was my favorite car. Just like I said, kind of what I experienced the Hot Wheels. It looked exactly like a Hot Wheels car. I don't know. I may be childish for that,
really
but
cool.
I just really like that car.
Yeah.
And then so that was probably my favorite car, just because the aesthetic and how it pulled up and it's this chair, the top off, I just really like the car and it's just the aesthetic. I think it's just the more classic.
That's exactly the type of early hot rods that would show up to the burger joints back then. So
I would pick up all the girls. That'd be it, huh?
And for you, Jose?
My favorite car was the 2020 Venador. No, I'm kidding. It was the 1958 Buick. I really liked it because I kind of I don't know if this was a thing back then, but does the shininess factor kind of? I think I heard you talking about the shinier a car is, the more valuable it is, or something like that.
Not necessarily. I think 1958 was a particularly special year because that was during the space age, like when like Russia was starting to like explore space, and so the automotive industry started to like put like fins on the cars and a lot of chrome.
Oh shit!
It's like to resemble. It's meant to resemble like the jets of that age.
Okay.
So that's why there's a lot of fins and a lot of chrome.
Okay, that kind of makes sense because it did kind of look like a little bit like out of its era, like a little bit more futuristic kind of.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Sure.
Yeah, and then the second one that I liked is like, but I don't really know which one it was called. It was like this guy kind of pulled up in a little van, but he was driving on the left side, and I thought that was really cool. On the right side, never mind, on the right side.
You kind of look like Gilmore from Cars. A little bit like that, but even a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
The Asian film.
Less hippie.
Yeah, and I thought that one was actually kind of cool too. But I thought it was cool because I'd never seen that before. So
It's interesting. We went there last week, like before we took you guys, and he was like cruising around, kind of checking out the show, but he actually never pulled in. So we saw him again this week.
He was doing that again too. Like he was like going around the block.
He was building up courage, bro. He was trying to go and see if everybody was trying to see, and then he just pulled up in there. And
Well, maybe he wanted to see like a girl. You know?
Yeah, stole the show.
Maybe there's no girls, he don't want to go.
Yeah, so.
But the thing is about this, like, you know, we're talking about this and like how we're saying like how the car shows are different from like, you know, what people our age and then from back then, you know, like all those cars were actually, you know, all the audience was older people.
Yeah.
So that's what was like cool, you know, like that. I think because you know, I don't know, just for people who don't, I don't know, just me personally, I like, you know, I like to talk to old people too, or like just you know, be around them. You know, they have a good vibe. They're always like happy. They enjoy life, you know. So it's like cool to be around them. And there wasn't like anything like crazy, you know. It was just like good times and like no yelling. It was like just very like, you know, like
mellow in the moment.
Mellow in the moment, exactly. So that's what, you know, was cool. So that's what, you know, I like. You know, one of the other things, you know, that probably the aesthetics I liked about the car show.
Yeah. Well, we're glad that you guys were able to come along and check that out with us. We had a really good time.
Indeed.
Yeah, I had a good time too. And I'd definitely do that like again sometime. If you guys ever like invite us out there, like we'll definitely be there again.
Definitely.
Definitely.
So make sure to check out the podcast on That Talk for the full interview with Brian and I.
Yes, sir. Make sure you guys check that out because, you know, it's something very special and we do get into it. You know, we don't only get into like the car show, we get into the YouTube and business side of it, you know, because we do right here just talk about business and self-growth. So, you know, make sure you guys check it out and then we'll see you guys on the episode. Peace.